I used to believe our marriage was the kind people dreamed of, steady, tender, full of small rituals that made life feel secure. Every morning, I'd wake to the smell of her coffee brewing before the alarm went off. She always said it was her love language, acts of care, quiet and constant. We'd sit across from each other, half asleep, smiling without speaking. It was enough. Even in silence, I felt chosen. Emily was everything I'd ever wanted: brilliant, kind, a little mysterious in the way that made her interesting. When she laughed, the whole room seemed lighter. Our friends called us the unbreakable pair. I believed them. We shared dreams over late dinners, joked about how ordinary our life looked from the outside. But I loved that ordinary. I loved coming home to her humming in the kitchen, the way she rested her head on my shoulder when she was tired. One Tuesday, her phone rang during breakfast. A brief conversation, low voice, professional tone. When she hung up, she said her company was sending her on a last-minute business trip, 3 days, maybe 4. I nodded, pretending not to notice the flicker of nerves in her smile. I asked if she wanted me to drive her to the airport. She said no, she'd call a cab, didn't want to bother me. I told her it wasn't a bother, but she was already halfway to the bedroom, packing. When the cab pulled away, I stood by the window, watching until the taillights disappeared. The house felt strangely quiet without her, like it was holding its breath. I thought about how trust is built, small moments stacked over years, and how easily they can shift, without warning. I didn't know it then, but something had already changed. The first night without her felt longer than usual. I told myself it was just the silence. I sent a quick message before bed, "Hope your trip's going well." Hours passed before she replied, "Busy day, talk tomorrow." The next evening was the same. Messages unanswered, calls going straight to voicemail. I told myself she must be exhausted. Still, something small and sharp began to grow in the back of my mind. By the third day, I checked her flight number online, out of habit more than doubt. But the details didn't match. Different time, different city. I stared at the screen, rereading it, thinking maybe I typed it wrong. When I called the hotel she said she'd be staying at, the receptionist said there was no guest under her name. My stomach turned cold. For a long time, I just sat there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the quiet clock on the wall. The next morning, I ran into one of her colleagues at the coffee shop near her office. I asked casually about the conference. She looked confused, said there wasn't one that week. Maybe she's visiting a client, she added, but her tone carried uncertainty. I smiled, pretended it made sense, and walked out before she could ask questions. That evening, I poured myself a drink, trying to steady the shaking in my hands. I reminded myself how much I trusted her, how sure I was of her love. People make mistakes with schedules all the time, I told myself. Maybe the booking changed. Maybe she forgot to tell me. But every excuse sounded thinner, weaker. I scrolled through our old messages, the heart emojis, the words, "always yours." I whispered them like a prayer, as if saying them again could make them true. On the 5th day, my phone buzzed with a message from a friend who lived near the coast. He asked if Emily's business trip had been extended. I told him yes, and he paused before sending another message, a photo. My heart stopped. There she was, sitting at a seaside cafe, her hand resting on another man's arm. She was smiling, the kind of smile I used to think belonged only to me. I stared at the image for a long time, my chest tightening until I couldn't breathe. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I spent the rest of the day replaying our last moments together, her laughter at breakfast, the way she avoided my eyes as she packed. Every small detail became evidence I had missed. My mind tried to bargain, twisting for explanations that no longer fit. Work friend? Client? Coincidence? But the truth had already taken shape, heavy and undeniable. The woman I trusted most had built her absence out of lies. When she finally came home 2 days later, she looked tired but calm, dragging her suitcase across the floor as if nothing had happened. I stood there, holding my phone, the picture open on the screen. I asked her where she had been. She froze. For a moment, silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then her eyes filled with tears. She didn't deny it. She said it wasn't planned, that she hadn't meant for it to happen, that she was confused. Her words stumbled, searching for justification that didn't exist. I listened without interrupting. Every word felt distant, hollow. When she finally stopped talking, I only asked one question: why? She looked down, whispering she didn't know. That was the moment I understood. Love isn't destroyed in a single act. It erodes, quietly, while you're still believing it's whole. The morning after the truth came out, she packed in silence. No shouting, no begging, just the quiet sound of drawers opening and closing. I sat on the couch, numb, listening to the rhythm of her leaving. Every item she placed in her bag felt like a piece of our life being folded away. When she paused at the door, she tried to speak, but the words never came. I didn't stop her. There was nothing left to say. When the door closed, the house felt like a stranger's place. The air was still heavy with her perfume, a faint echo of what used to be home. I walked through each room, realizing how much of her existed in every corner: her book on the nightstand, her scarf on the chair. But instead of pain, there was only exhaustion, like I had been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. I took off my wedding ring and left it on the table. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It just was. Days turned into weeks. I stopped checking my phone. I started sleeping better. I began running again, just to feel something other than regret. Each morning, the light crept through the window a little softer, a little kinder. I wasn't happy yet, but I was healing, quietly, deliberately. The memories still came, but they no longer tore me apart. They reminded me that I had loved honestly, even if she hadn't. Now, when I think of her, it isn't with anger. It's with acceptance. She said it was a business trip. I guess, in her way, it was a trip to somewhere I couldn't follow. And me? I stayed behind, learning how to rebuild, one truth at a time.